Hello, students of biology class Senior 3. I'm Scovia, as usual, your biology teacher. We are continuing from the previous lessons we have been looking at. You remember that we are starting lesson 4. We are continuing to look at the effects of human activities on ecosystem 2. That is conservation and sustainability, all right? So under this, we are going to put our emphasis on the requirement of sustainable development. Requirement of sustainable development. Benefits of conservation programs. Remember the word ecosystem. I always emphasize on this, all right? Ecosystem, this is an organism in a community and how it interacts or how they interact with the environment. Organisms in an ecosystem, in a community, and how they interact with the environment. That is ecosystem, as the major word in the unit. I always like that. I always like you to start this after knowing what ecosystem is. Remind you, this is organism in a community and how they interact with their environment, all right? So lesson 4, it is lesson 4, so we have covered so far 3 lessons under this unit. So it is the continuation. Therefore, under this, we are looking at the requirement of sustainable development and the benefits of conservation programs, all right? So we have objectives. As always, whenever we start a lesson, we should be having objectives, all right? So today's objective are, at the end of this lesson, every learner will be able to give the requirements or to be knowing when you asked, what are the requirements of sustainable development? You will be able to give them out, all right? We'll be able to explain the benefits of conservation programs. Those are the 2 major things. Among the many we shall talk, those are the 2 major things that you need to have known by the end of this lesson, all right? Yes. So we are going to start the requirements of sustainable development. To remind ourselves, the major term here is sustainable development. What did we say in the previous lesson? What did we say about sustainable development? Who can try to tell us what sustainable development is? We talked about this, right? Yeah, it is the long-term program that is put out for the future also to get used of or to help even the future. These are programs that are put out, or these are developments that are put out that are not only for today, but also for tomorrow. We remember in the previous lesson we talked of the ability of the future. We don't look at the ability of the future. We don't do this looking at the ability of the future. No, no, no. We do this to help us today and even tomorrow. So it is a long-term development, all right? That is sustainable development. It is not something that is going to be done and helps you today only. No, no, we need also in the future. It will also help the future generation. That is sustainable development. So we're going to see what are the requirements. What are we supposed to do? What are the requirements for to get sustainable development? So there are 3 factors that affect sustainable development. The one is that need to be addressed. So these are the things that when not addressed, sustainable development will not be achieved, all right? And our lesson is to know the requirement for sustainable development. So we need to look at those things that when not worked upon, sustainable development will not be achieved. You get what I'm saying? What are the things that hinder? What are the things that, when not addressed, sustainable development will not be achieved? Before we look at how to, the requirements for sustainable development. 1, economic growth, environmental awareness, and social issues. These are the 3 major things that need to be addressed before the requirements for sustainable development. All right? So we need to look at this. We need to address these three issues before we go to sustainable development. It should be implemented in such a way as to meet the needs of the future generation. That is sustainable development. So when you're putting out what we call sustainable development, you don't only look for today, as I said before. You look even for the future generation. Is this thing that I'm going to do, will it help somebody who will be born in 20, 30 years to come? That is sustainable development. So don't look at today. Look at the future generation. Will it be helpful for somebody who will be born in 20 to 30 years? Another thing, the increasing global population needs more resources. That is obvious. No, as the population increases, more resources are needed. What are those resources? What are those resources that we need, of which we need to see how to use them efficiently such that we don't affect or we don't cause unsustainable development? We need uncontaminated food and water supplies. Everybody, regardless that the population is increasing, we need uncontaminated food, we need clean water, all right? Those are the basic level, or those are the basic things that are needed by every individual. We need shelter. Everybody needs shelter, regardless of what. We need shelter. We need clothing and good health. So those are the basic level that we need to be having. Everybody has to, in the population, as decreases, but we need those resources. We need those major or basic things: uncontaminated food, clean water, shelter, clothing, and good health. They are the basic things everybody needs, all right? So all these requirements are obtained from natural resources. You see? All those ones we have mentioned, the clean water, uncontaminated food, shelter, clothing, and good health, they are got from natural resources. Therefore, the natural resources have increasing demands upon them and can be difficult to manage them. All right? So, because we need those requirements as the basic things that we need, we put pressure on the natural resources. You find that there is pressure on the natural resources. Therefore, the increasing demand upon them makes or brings difficulty on how to manage them. All right? So, what can we do? What can we do such that we at least reduce the pressure that we put on those natural resources? What do we have to do? There are some alternative resources that we can use instead of only using the natural resources. Instead of using or basing on the natural resources to get the basic needs, we can use alternatives, which are, most of the natural resources are non-renewable. Remember that. Last lesson, we talked of non-renewable resources, of which there are resources, when used, cannot be used again. So the majority of the natural resources, those are minerals, those are fossil fuels, petroleum, whatever, the metals, when used once, they cannot be renewed. Therefore, what we refer to them as non-renewable resources. So what alternatives can we use such that we can get what we are supposed to get as the basic things, but also we don't put a lot of pressure on the natural resources? So this is one of the alternatives that we need to do. There is alternative resources might be developed to remove pressure or strain on non-renewable resources. However, sometimes or most of the times you find these alternative resources are very expensive and takes time to get them. So some of them we can use. These that are expensive and takes time, we have also some of a diagram there that you can look at. This is the solar power as an alternative source of energy. The solar power, look on the screen, have the solar power of which instead of only relying on natural resources to get power, you can get alternative, the solar power. The government here is putting emphasis to schools, is put hospitals to use the solar power, homes to use solar power instead of only relying on these natural resources to get power. So we can use this solar power as an alternative, regardless that sometimes you find hard times that they are expensive, it takes time to get them, but they will remove strain, they will remove pressure on the natural resources, and on the other hand, you get the basic needs that you're looking for, all right? So the nature conservation and space in sustainable development is one of the major challenges facing humanity. Yeah. The way we use, or the way we conserve the nature in sustainable development, you see that it's the challenge of the human beings. So the global conservation cannot be resolved. I said this, remember, that this cannot be solved by only one country. No, no, no. It is the contribution of international effort. It is the effort of different of the whole world, so that you get you reach to sustainable development, but also the nature is conserved. All right? Good. So in Rwanda, the government has put in place measures for sustainable development in a document known as Rwanda's Vision 2020 program. All right? So there is a vision that the Rwanda government has put out before that contains some of the measures to reach to sustainable development. Those things that will help you today and in the future. So it is covered under the Rwanda's Vision 2020 program, and we're going to look at some of those sustainable development issues that were the major ones that were put out by the government of Rwanda. So the following are the major requirements of sustainable development in Rwanda. One, there are methods to reduce poverty using cooperatives. So different cooperative companies were raised in Rwanda. The Milenge Circle, all of those were put out so that they can reduce poverty. All right? So under Vision 2020 Rwanda program, they sat down and said, you know, to work out when you're an individual, it is very difficult. It's therefore 2, 3 people, 2 or more than, excuse me, more than 2 people or 5, a group of people, it's very easy to work in a group, in a cooperative, such that you can attain the sustainable development. Another thing is to improve the health services in order to reduce infant mortality rate. Some years back, the way how the mortality rate was in infants, children were dying at high rate. But under this Rwanda's Vision 2020 program, there are some measures that were put out to control the death of children, the infant. Many of them. First of all, they brought this mutuelle de santé, whereby somebody who is very poor down in the village is able to get treatment without even paying any cost, depending on the category in which the individual is placed. So that one will help sustainable development. It is not only to help for today, it will be for long term. It is a long term. It will reduce the infant mortality rate. So another thing that was put up is the reduction of HIV and AIDS. So the government of Rwanda, in its Vision 2020 program, there are measures that it put out to control, to sensitize the population on how to control the spread of HIV virus, which leads to AIDS, and to help those who are already affected to keep living. All right? So that is also a long-term program. It is not only for today. It is there for years. All right? So the government of Rwanda said that if people are not, to those who are not affected, these are measures, different measures. I think you know the measures that are used to prevent the spread of HIV. So if you are affected, you also helped. You're not supposed to be dumped. You're not to be left behind that you are affected. No, no, no. If you have the disease, there are many different ways on how you can live by giving you medicines, by giving you support, that is financial support, food to keep you living. So those are some of the things the government did to reduce in reduction of HIV and AIDS, both on those affected and those who are not yet affected. All right? Reduction of malaria. This program of reduction of malaria is also under sustainable development in Rwanda's Vision 2020 program. So, see, the government has given the whole population these mosquito nets. There is even the treatment for malaria is free. So you find the government is putting out a program, a long-term program, such that the malaria can be eradicated, since it is a serious disease that can kill the population. So education for sustainable development. So it is education, sensitization of the population on how to achieve sustainable development. All right? So these are the things that the Rwanda government put out such that we can reach to sustainable development. All right? So that we can reach sustainable development. There's participation of people in decision-making by empowering them. That is also a long-term issue. So it's the Rwandan citizens that have to put out their own ideas on different things. Decision-making. It's not the body of the government to come and put out decisions on certain things for the citizens. No, no, no. It's the citizens, under sustainable development, the citizens have the right to give out, have the freedom to give out what they feel they want and should be discussed. So that is a long-term thing. All right? So it is not going to be done for today. It is going to be done even in many years to come. All right? So therefore, what is important is to achieve environmental and ethical awareness values and skills and culture which are constant with sustainable development. So when you're asked to tell some of the requirements of sustainable development, you will mention specifically for this country, Rwanda, you will put emphasis on Rwanda Vision 2020 program because it's the one that brings out most of the things that are under, under sustainable development, all right? So we talked of the methods of reducing poverty, improve health services, reduction of AIDS, eradication of malaria, education of sustainable development, and participation of people in decision-making. So those ones are very important to reach the sustainable development, all right? Good. So another thing we said we are going to look at under this, after looking at the requirements of sustainable development, we're going to look at the benefits of conservation programs. What are the benefits of conservation programs? So when we talk of the conservation programs, what are we trying to mean? So the conservation program, those are programs brought out by the government to try to conserve plants, animals that can be in harm. All right? Those are the programs. So what is the benefit of them? What do they help? One, conservation programs aim to preserve the natural environment. The natural environment, keeping it from harm or damage for later use. So when the natural environment is conserved, when the natural environment is preserved, it will be used for many years. All right? Another reason or another benefit of conservation program is conservation also aims at maintaining quantity, management, protection, and wise use of natural resources to support life. It's not only that the natural resources are used anyhow. They actually should be used or maintained in their quantity, management. They need to be protected and used as natural resources to support life, not just to be used anyhow. All right? Good. So those are the benefits of conservation programs. All right? So the benefits of conservation programs also can be the reduction of extinction of species. All right? The reduction of extinction of species. Those species which are in danger can be conserved. That is a very good thing. Instead of, if you leave them anyhow, they are used anyhow, so they will get extinct. So under these conservation programs, they put emphasis on conserving or reducing the extinction of those species. Through conservation strategies, so under reduction of extinction of services, one, there is conservation strategies. Many species of plants and animals have been maintained and saved from extinction. Another point is maintaining ecosystem functions. So the conservation measures seek to prevent environmental degradation, hence maintaining a healthy ecosystem function. There is also protecting vulnerable environment. We're going to see how this is Nyungwe Forest, all right? This is Nyungwe Forest on the screen. So this Nyungwe Forest were in danger. It was in danger. But because of conservation measures, the strong conservation measures that were put forward, the places that were in danger, or those places, those parts of the forest that was like cut down, they were reforested, reforestation took place, new plants were planted, and per now they are kept in a way that they are protected or preserved in a way that they don't get extinct anymore. Because in this Nyungwe forest, it can act as a tourist attraction to Rwanda. All right? So it is conserved. Therefore, protection of vulnerable environments is also among the benefits of conserving the environment or conservation programs. All right? Good. So, to remind ourselves on some of these conservation programs, the benefits. Remember that in the objectives we have, remember that we need to know the benefits of these conservation measures or these conservation programs. The conservation programs that were put out to conserve the environment. So we said the benefits are the conservation. First of all, the conservation program aims at preserve the natural environment, keeping it from harm or damage for later use. We said that. So conservation also aims at maintaining quantity, management, protection, and wise use of natural resources to support life. This word wise is very important here. Sorry? The word wise is very important. Why is it important here? It is very important in a way that if the natural resources are not used wisely, if they are not used wisely, they will get extinct. We cannot stop from using the natural resources, by the way. Even if we rely on other alternatives, as we have seen, even if we rely on those other alternatives, we need also to use the natural resources. Because we have said, to get the alternatives, it is very expensive sometimes and takes time. So we shall keep using the natural resources, but we need to use the natural resources wisely, so that it can support life, but still we keep those that are in danger to keep living, not to get extinct. All right? So the benefits, we said, there is reducing extinction of species. So the species which are in danger, we need to keep their use to be reduced. So we need to reduce the using of those species in danger. Another thing, we need to maintain ecosystem function. The ecosystem has to keep functioning. Remember, the ecosystem is what? The interaction of organism with their environment. So we don't need to say that, okay, you know what? The natural resources are in danger, so let us not tackle them. Let us not touch on them. No, no, no. We shall keep using them, but we need to control the way we use them such that the function of the ecosystem keeps on moving. All right? So another thing is, as I said, the protection of vulnerable environments. We showed this example of the Nyungwe forest. The Nyungwe forest in Rwanda is preserved and conserved, and some measures and rules are put out such that these trees, which some were in extinction, can be preserved, that even in the future, for education and research, as we saw, we can get them for medicines, all right? So everybody is supposed to be to put an eye on those people trying to harass or to kill those animals, to cut down those plants that are in danger, all right? So you cut one tree, you plant 2 trees. That is the system, all right? Such that the system, the ecosystem, keeps in function. So before we conclude today's lesson, as always, some small exercises are left behind so that when you go back home, you can work on them. So there are 2 questions there related to what we have covered in today's lesson, that if you go back home, you try to work, and then when you come back, we shall see what you have done. The first number is, suggest measures to be taken to control wildlife trafficking. The other one is, how do you suppose the Rwanda government will achieve Rwanda's Vision 2020 program? All right? So those are the 2 questions that I've left out from what we have covered that you need to do, and we shall look at them when you come back. So thank you so much for your good attention. Bye.